Good morning. My name is Digna Sarang, and this is TATOLI Global. From economic resilience to sustainable growth, the World Bank is still continuing to be a key role in Timor-Leste's development. And so joining us today is a resident representative, David Friedman from World Bank, to give us a little bit of insights into the support that World Bank has done together with Timor-Leste. So, Mr. Friedman, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off by asking, how does World Bank currently assess Timor-Leste's economic resilience amid ongoing challenges?
Thank you for the invitation. We see that Timor-Leste has, in the near term, a high level of economic resilience, largely due to the significant savings in the Petroleum Fund, the country's sovereign wealth fund. At the beginning of this year, the Petroleum Fund had $18.6 billion, and at the end of March this had fallen slightly to $18.3 billion due to transfers to the state budget and also a small decline in the asset values of the fund's investments. But if we look at the fund's value relative to Timor-Leste's GDP, this is a very large fiscal buffer, large savings, and that can provide a lot of resilience. As we know, there's increasing instability and turbulence in the world economy, and some of that is linked to disruptions in supply chains and movements in commodity prices. And so it's actually not sufficient to have financial reserves, although that's very important, but it's also very important to ensure access to key inputs and commodities, things like fuel, energy, food, etc., and also sufficient reserves. On that front, I think Timor-Leste's government should be congratulated. We saw earlier this year, as the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz started to rise up the agenda in terms of concerns around supply chains, the government acted very quickly to reassure the public on the security of fuel supply, and then, having done that, took additional measures to establish a strategic reserve and to ensure there would be sufficient fuel supplies for the remainder of this year. It's also good to see that the government has been paying attention to food prices and also food stocks, because we would see some concerns around the potential for food price increases, again linked to disruptions in supply chains. So I would say, in summary, overall, in the near term, Timor-Leste has a relatively high level of economic resilience, but we also have to be careful not to be complacent, because we can see some concerns related to fiscal sustainability and longer-term resilience, which would also need to be addressed.
You've mentioned petroleum as well as the Bayou Yunda. Given Timor-Leste's sort of major dependence into oil and gas revenues from the Bayou Yunda field, how can the country diversify its economy, and which sectors do you think should be prioritized?
In the past, we were used to talking about Timor-Leste or describing Timor-Leste as an oil-dependent country, and I think we need to be clear on this now, that production from Bayundan, or at least the first phase of production, came to an end the middle of last year, 2025, and so currently Timor-Leste does not have any fossil fuel production or exports, and it would be wrong for us to say that the country is petroleum dependent, but rather it's dependent on its sovereign wealth fund, which is invested in a diversified set of assets, mostly outside the country. In terms of the future development and diversification strategies, I think the first thing, it's important to recognize that Timor-Leste does have natural resource endowments, and both in terms of oil and gas and also potentially minerals, and these resources can be developed to provide additional employment and also income for the country. First and foremost, and maybe the most well-known, there's Greater Sunrise, which is a very large field, a relatively large field of gas and also liquids, and we hope that that can be developed through an agreement between Timor-Leste, Australia and the commercial partners. There are also smaller oil and gas fields, some of which are moving ahead into development, such as the Kudetasi field, and there's also a lot of exploration ongoing in the oil and gas sector. The mineral sector is at an earlier stage of development, so still at the exploration stage, but I would say that the preparatory work that the government did to establish the legal framework for mining and also to do the initial geological surveys has created a good foundation. And we can see that there's quite a lot of interest from commercial investors who are coming, applying for licenses for exploration and doing that. So the first thing to say is that oil and gas and minerals, the extractive industries, can be an important part of Timor-Leste's economic future, even though there isn't currently production ongoing. But of course we do see an important role for economic diversification, and this can contribute in terms of job creation, economic resilience, and also growth and prosperity. The key sectors that we would see as having very strong potential, the first would be agriculture and agribusiness related activities. Today about 70% of Timorese population live in rural areas, and a large share of the population is still directly engaged in agricultural production, albeit often at relatively low levels of productivity and with relatively low levels of market integration and commercialization. So there would be one opportunity is essentially to improve productivity, market integration and commercialization in the agriculture sector. Another sector that I would highlight is tourism. We see that, of course, Timor-Leste is a beautiful country, has very rich natural resources, also a very rich and interesting culture, and also history. And we see that people who visit the country often have a very positive experience, but the numbers of visitors coming are still relatively low. We've seen good growth in recent years following COVID. It's rebounded now quite strongly. And the ASEAN accession and preparations for ASEAN membership should create conditions that will be very conducive to tourism growth as well. So the investment in the airport in Dili, the International Convention Center, additional hotels and accommodation, and also improvements in infrastructure across the country should basically create better conditions to present Timor-Leste as a competitive tourism destination and attract more visitors to come here for holidays and other forms of travel. A final sector I would mention is manufacturing. Today Timor-Leste's manufacturing sector is very small, and if we look at manufacturing output as a share of GDP, it's very low. But there are some businesses, some, let's say, sort of groundbreaking, path-breaking businesses that have already entered the manufacturing sector and have shown that it is possible to produce products in Timor-Leste competitively. And there are some very interesting businesses that are preparing to make large investments, including in ship manufacturing, which is, I think, it's a very interesting and exciting opportunity for the country. This is a major company from Japan, I think top 2 in Japan, top 10 globally, and they are looking to establish a major manufacturing base in Timor-Leste that would employ maybe 4,000 to 4,500 Timorese workers. So this would be, I think, a proof. It would have a huge impact directly, and it would also demonstrate to others that investment from outside the country in Timor-Leste's manufacturing sector is viable and may have that demonstration effect and help to attract others.
Right. In the perspective of the World Bank, what strategies does Timor-Leste need to strengthen its economic resilience for the long term?
So the first thing that we would highlight is the importance of ensuring a credible commitment to maintaining macroeconomic stability. Timor-Leste today has a large sovereign wealth fund, the Petroleum Fund, that provides a significant fiscal buffer. But we also see that there's a large fiscal deficit which is being financed from the Petroleum Fund. And so the government's own projections with the recent rectification budget still shows that on a continuation of current trends, the Petroleum Fund could be depleted as soon as 2037. So it's just slightly more than 10 years from now. And if that were to happen, it would have quite severe negative impacts in terms of economic stability and then also, well-being and the social sectors. We see that as that's a projection based on a continuation of current trends. And obviously there are projects, I mentioned earlier, Greater Sunrise, so there are other projects and opportunities which can expand the resource base that's available to finance public spending. What we would see is that it's very important that government and the broader stakeholders work together to ensure that the overall fiscal policy is aligned to preserve economic stability, and that investors and the wider society will have confidence that economic stability will be maintained. And what that effectively means is that there would need to be an effort to calibrate public spending and to try and ensure that there are not very hard commitments or rigidities that get locked into public spending, which will be difficult to adjust if development of new resources is delayed. So that sort of macro fiscal piece is very important. Beyond that, what we would see is the importance of lifting private investment, so implementing reforms and investments that can improve overall competitiveness, increase the mobilization of private investment, and stimulate private sector-led economic growth, job creation, and also domestic resource mobilization. So essentially to grow the economy, grow the tax base, and improve the fiscal sustainability position, as well as improving people's lives. On monetary policy, what we would highlight is that for the time being, dollarization is an appropriate monetary arrangement. And in time, the government and central bank, the monetary authorities, may look to move away from dollarization, but this should be done carefully and in a well-measured approach, and with regard to maintaining economic stability.
World Bank has been one, well, as I've mentioned in the beginning, World Bank continues to play a key role in the development of Timor-Leste. And so what are some of the key priorities, or what are the key priorities of the World Bank groups here in Timor-Leste?
Thank you. So the World Bank Group is composed of the World Bank, which provides financing and technical assistance to the government. We have then the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, which provides financing to private companies and provides technical assistance that's very related to private sector development. And then we have MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, which provides risk mitigation solutions on non-commercial risks for investors who are investing into Timor-Leste from outside. So these three institutions are the core, let's say, agencies within the World Bank Group that are providing financing and support to Timor-Leste. We work very much in response to government priorities, and we try to align our support with the government's strategies and plans. Currently we are implementing we're providing financing for government projects in the road sector, specifically the road linking Gleno to Letafoho, Letafoho to Hatibiliku. And following a recent government request, we are now preparing an additional financing package to support upgrading of the road from Hatibiliku to Aitutu, and also from Hatibiliku to the Santuario of Ramalao as well. So that's in the road sector. The government has recently also requested financing to support the upgrading of the Baukau water project, Baukau water system in Baukau Villa in the town, and we are now preparing that project. And we have additional resources, concessional financing resources available to support other investments in the country, and we will prioritize or allocate those based on government requests. We do a lot of work also in, I would say, we can say technical assistance or knowledge work, again aligned with government priorities and trying to support as much as possible the overall development agenda. We've been working closely with the Ministry of Finance and with Inatel on an updated measure of poverty in the country based on the Timor-Leste Living Standards Survey, and also working on the Demographic and Health Survey. We've been working with Ministry of Justice on land administration reforms and the Unique ID program, and we are currently working closely with the Ministry of Education on a study to look at ways to improve education infrastructure and social infrastructure more generally. We are very aware of the importance of private sector development and economic diversification, and so through the IFC, but also with World Bank, we have a very significant program working with the central bank, BCTL, on financial sector development. We partner directly with BNCTL, the National Commercial Bank, and also with Kai Bauk. We are working on energy sector development, renewable energy, including solar and wind, as well as the housing sector. And we are looking all the time for new opportunities that we can mobilize financing to support productive investments within the country.
I'd like to redirect our focus into the areas of education as well as vocational training. How important is it how important is investment in education and vocational training for Timor-Leste's economic transformation?
I mean, the simple answer is very important.
Yeah.
Yes. So, we just had the Independence Day celebration, and I'm still, even after having lived here for some time, I'm still very struck by how young the population is. So, as of the 2022 census, I think more than half of the population are below the age of 25. I think it's 56% of the population were 24 or years old or younger. And it was quite striking to me. I just was realizing that with the independence, the 24th anniversary this week, actually most Timorese alive today have been born after the independence. So that young demographic is full of potential, but that potential can only be realized with high quality of basic education, health services, nutrition, and this is what in totality we would call human capital. So you mentioned TVET, the Technical and Vocational Education and Training. This is also very important, but I would start by emphasizing the importance of the early stages, so early childhood development, the foundations of, let's say, productivity over an entire lifetime, and really the investments that need to be made at that stage. In that area, we can see that Timor-Leste has made really commendable progress, especially in increasing the coverage and enrollment of primary education. It's now, I think, essentially 100%. And we've also seen big improvements in coverage of immunizations for young children, and quite encouraging progress in reducing infant and maternal mortality. But I think we should be clear and realistic that there is still a lot of room for improvement. Right. And Timor-Leste recently joined ASEAN, and so it's natural that we would look at what is the situation in these areas for other countries within Southeast Asia. And there's certainly room for improvement. And I think the good news is that these are areas where progress is possible. Timor-Leste is relatively a small country, fortunate to have resources available, and of course institutions, partners like the World Bank Group are very ready to engage and to support and to work together. But it's really important to get that basic foundation in place. And then of course when we look at the TVET sector, so job-ready skills, preparing people for employment is crucial. I will say that one challenge in the past that Timor-Leste has faced is how to get the balance between supply and demand, because the private sector is still at a relatively early stage of development. We don't have so many well-organized and significant employers in the formal sector who can absorb a lot of skilled workers, TVET trained workers. And it can be challenging if you take a young person, you give them TVET training and then encourage them to go directly into self-employment or entrepreneurship without first gaining experience in formal employment. So that is changing with more private investment, new companies setting up, more jobs being created within the country. But there's also very interesting opportunities linked to labour mobility, and especially the labour mobility programs with Australia, New Zealand, perhaps also South Korea as well. And so in the TVET sector, I think one of the key agendas moving forward would be to look at how to leverage the access that Timor-Leste has to these overseas labour markets, and the trend that we see, which is expected to continue, of young people going to work overseas, at least for a period of time. So how to leverage that to build up skills training within the country to help people to access better employment opportunities, and then also to reintegrate if they're coming back. So yeah, very important, and I think there's good progress and certainly more that can be done. Yeah.
Right. What recommendations does the World Bank have for improving the business environment and as well as attracting foreign investments?
So on the business environment, we have an assessment tool that's called Business Ready, and this was introduced maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and it's updated on an annual basis, and it provides a very detailed cross-country comparison on the quality of the business environment, both in terms of law, policy, but then also implementation, across 10 pillars that correspond to the various stages from starting a business, operating the business, and then finally potentially closing or liquidating. What we can see is that Timor-Leste has, when we compare to other countries that would be good benchmarks, Timor-Leste does have gaps, both in terms of law and policy, but often much more in the implementation. And that's understandable. We can totally understand why that would be the case. What we also see when we do surveys of businesses, and again we can compare using a standard enterprise survey format, we can compare the results across countries. What we also see is that even relatively small businesses, they are spending quite a lot of time, management time, interacting and interfacing with government agencies, maybe because of uncertainty, inefficiency, sort of bureaucracy and so on. What I would say in terms of the improvement of the business environment is that there's plenty of scope for improvement, and I think the accession to ASEAN provides a catalyst and also some commitments and requirements that can help to drive that process. The focus and the emphasis should be on outcomes. So policy and legislation is important, but in the end it's only as good as the implementation. And on that, there should be, I think, a lot of scope to leverage e-government and digital technologies to improve the overall efficiency of different elements of government services. On the investment attraction, I think that Timor-Leste is doing a good job in lifting its profile internationally, and I think the ASEAN accession again has attracted a lot of additional attention from people in the region, further overseas, and we've seen that in terms of investor delegations coming into the country. There are a few key things which can really help to build on that progress and that strong foundation. I think the first is addressing perhaps some of the most fundamental constraints to private investment, and especially on that I would highlight the implementation of the land law and land titling and establishment of a modern land administration. I think this is probably the single biggest and most catalytic thing that could actually unlock additional private investment. The second thing I would highlight is longer term macro stability and the importance from government, from the broader, let's say, political leadership of making and communicating what I would say is a credible commitment to maintain macroeconomic stability. At the moment, as the budget documents show that the possibility that the petroleum fund would be depleted within 10 or more years, and that obviously for people who are considering longer term investments in the country, that can be a source of uncertainty which may actually deter or discourage investment. And so I think it will be ideally, the government and political leadership will make a very clear commitment to maintaining stability, and they will ensure that that commitment is credible, right? So that people, investors considering making long-term investments in the country will see that they have confidence in the overall stability. The final thing that I would highlight is, again, coming back to the overall ease of doing business and the efficiency with which new business ventures can come forwards. I think there, as I mentioned, ASEAN accession, integration into the region, considering that Timor-Leste's domestic market is quite small, that regional integration, access to larger markets, linkages to regional and global supply chains will be very important in terms of attracting additional investment and stimulating further growth.
Looking into the areas of small and medium-sized enterprises, how can Timor-Leste better support these small and medium-sized enterprises to drive local economic growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic question, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I think quickly just to say that what we see from data gathered from including businesses in the country, including MSMEs, is that they do spend a lot of their time dealing, or more than businesses in neighboring countries, dealing with different elements of government and public administration and so on. So there is clearly a case for some streamlining and simplification of administrative processes. Beyond that, what I would say is that clearly access to finance is a recurring and significant issue. And again, looking at cross-country comparisons, we see that MSMEs in Timor-Leste are significantly less likely to access credit. They have bank accounts, so it's not that they are completely outside the financial system. They're typically registered, so it's not that they're operating informally, but they generally don't access credit. And that can be an important constraint in terms of their ability to grow. I think the government is very aware of this, and clearly it's an increasing priority. And what we see in terms of stimulating MSME access to finance, of course, globally it's a big priority for the IFC and for the World Bank Group. What we would see is that there are three elements within this. The first is strengthening the legal foundations that underpin financial intermediation. So this is about the ability to create collateral or security interests and to also enforce them, and then the let's say information asymmetries that can exist, so establishing financial infrastructure for payments, credit reporting, and so on. You then need to look at the ecosystem of financial institutions, so whether there are banks, non-bank financial institutions, fintech companies, etc., that actually have the capacity and the appetite to provide financing to MSMEs. And then finally, we need to look also at the MSMEs' own capabilities, right, in terms of financial management, business management. So are they actually credible, and can they present themselves as being a suitable customer to a financial institution who typically will be willing to provide a loan, but of course wants to be confident they will be repaid. So as I mentioned, the first big thing would be on the business environment. The second is looking at access to finance. And the third, I think more specifically, is to think about a broader ecosystem for building MSME capabilities, which can include different elements related to training, skills development, etc. And I say this because I think we can see that private sector development within the country is still at a relatively early stage, and so many people may be starting a business for the first time, and of course they need to have they will benefit from support, training, skills development, etc., which I think may often be delivered by private institutions, but ideally should be done within a framework which is supported and maybe curated to some extent by the government. Yeah.
With Timor-Leste's integration into ASEAN, it kind of shows that Timor-Leste is now like a spotlight into the Southeast Asian nations. But how does the World Bank view Timor-Leste's ASEAN membership, and what economic opportunities can it bring to the country?
So Timor-Leste's ASEAN accession, I think, is a significant achievement, and I think Timor-Leste's leadership, and then all of the people from government, civil society, private sector, so everyone who contributed to achieving that accession, I think, is to be congratulated. I would say that this, our view is that the ASEAN accession and ASEAN membership provides some very good opportunities for Timor-Leste to accelerate progress in its own development plans and its vision for development. ASEAN is a significant market through the ASEAN Economic Community. It's also a growing platform for cooperation and for establishing common standards which can drive economic integration. In order to join ASEAN, Timor-Leste had to make quite significant commitments in terms of acceding to ASEAN treaties and implementing the commitments that the ASEAN members had already made prior to Timor-Leste's ASEAN accession. So we see that there's a significant workload, but we can also, our view is that the implementation of these commitments will actually be beneficial inherently, and that beyond this there's an opportunity to further leverage especially the economic integration in order to drive increased private investment, a more competitive and efficient business environment, and ultimately faster growth as well. I would also highlight that Timor-Leste's decision to proceed with chairing ASEAN in 2029, I think, is a catalyst. It will serve as a catalyst and a forcing factor for significant investments in infrastructure in Dili, but also in capability building in terms of the institutional capacity to organize and to host such a large series of events, And this will be, I think, also, as mentioned earlier, quite conducive in terms of longer-term development of tourism and other sectors as well. So I think overall very positive, and I should highlight that our most recent edition of the Timor-Leste Economic Report includes in-depth analysis of the ASEAN accession. I think there's a copy of it here. It's available on our website. So if you go online and search for World Bank Timor-Leste, you'll come to our website and you'll be able to find and download this report in English, in Portuguese, and also in Tetun as well. And it has in-depth analysis of the implications of the ASEAN membership and of the policies that Timor-Leste could adopt in order to fully leverage the opportunities.
Okay. And lastly, Mr. Friedman, as a resident representative of World Bank, what message would you like, or what message would the World Bank group like to share with the people of Timor-Leste regarding the country's economic future?
Okay. I think, we just had the 24th anniversary of the independence, and I think all Timorese can be very proud of the progress the country has made in the years since regaining independence. In many ways, what has been achieved is quite remarkable and far above the expectations that many people would have had at the time of independence. So I think the first thing is congratulations to all of the people of Timor-Leste and the progress that has been made so far. The World Bank Group, as an international institution, Timor-Leste, the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, is one of our shareholders. And so I would say to the people of Timor-Leste, we are also your institution. With the financial resources, the knowledge, the technical abilities that we have, we offer this as much as possible to Timor-Leste to support its development. There are always challenges, there are always uncertainties and unknowns, and so of course Timor-Leste does does face challenges ahead, and we've discussed some of them today. Myself, looking at the situation, I'm confident that each of the challenges that we can identify can be overcome through careful analysis, planning, and effective implementation. And the World Bank Group, as a development partner to Timor-Leste, we are here and we stand ready to work with Timor-Leste to support the country's development. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Friedman, for your insights into the continued unlimited support of World Bank to Timor-Leste. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so for the World Bank, the focus remains on building a stronger and a more resilient economy for Timor-Leste. I'm Digna Sarang, and on behalf of the team, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.